We've seen you. I know that
Good to
this
see you.
week, especially and today, you are busy as heck back in district dealing with the hurricane that just ravaged Florida and many other states. We're going to get to that in a moment with you because that is some big news in this country with, I believe, over 34 deaths. But let's begin with the war where there's been hundreds of thousands of deaths in Ukraine. And all you hear from the Biden-Harris and the Harris camp now is we will give them whatever they want until there is a full victory for Ukraine. And on the other hand, you have Trump going, no, I'm going to end the damn thing before I even raise my hand on January 20th. I mean, those are polar opposite views of how to take care of this war, Greg.
Yeah, and we've already given $120 billion to Ukraine, while Floridians, as we sit here today, all across the coastline of the western part of Florida, have lost their homes, have lost their livelihoods, have lost their businesses, and Biden's going to cut a check for another $8 billion to the Ukrainians, while Floridians and Americans are hurting from natural disasters. It's really frustrating, and I can't think that Americans see the money going overseas without a mission and a purpose. Like, what is our strategic objective there? People like myself who have consistently voted against this aid have said, what are we doing and what is our strategy? And nobody from the White House wants to tell us that. They just want to keep giving them our munitions, giving them our F-16, and giving them money where there's no oversight whatsoever of where this money has gone. When we have requested and put in and requests for oversight on this money, they don't want that. They don't want to tell us where the money's going because you don't know where the money's going. It could be going to oligarchs in Ukraine who are stealing the money. You don't know.
Well, I mean, we've heard all the rumors, and I've seen the articles that Zelensky's got homes in America and other countries now and some yachts and some jets. And why the hell, by the way, you're a vet, so am I. Why are we paying for, and I believe you guys are investigating now, a United States Air Force C-17 to fly Mr. Zelensky to our country to beg for more money from our country? Doesn't he have his own jets?
Yeah, you would think after getting $120 billion of American taxpayer dollars that they would have their own aircraft. I don't understand this administration. I don't understand why. I mean, you have an invasion at our southern border. Over 12 million people have come in, criminals, rapists, terrorists, known terrorists. They just let go into our country. And then you give money to the Ukrainians with zero strategy as to how to end this world. This has been going on now for 2 years. This is an administration that said, oh, this war will be over in 3 days when Russia invaded. And here we are 2 years later, still funding the chaos that's going on there with no strategic objective and no oversight on the dollars that you and I are spending there.
Yeah, they want another never-ending war. And I hate to say it, you got plenty on your side of the aisle, Greg. Not you, of course. We know where you stand. You voted against all this crap. But there's plenty of rhinos out there that make up the good old uniparty that want another never-ending war because we got to have Afghanistan. So now, how's the military-industrial complex going to make their billions? Ukraine. You mentioned the foreign invasion, right? We're more worried about the border with Ukraine and Russia than we're worried about our southern flank. And I should say northern, too, because now there's reports they're flooding in from Canada as well. But look at what was released today from, I believe it's the director of ICE. So this is the guy working under Biden-Harris, right? ICE now claims that they dumped 650,000 criminals in our country. Now, let me explain, folks, because I know all 15 to 20 million are criminals because they broke our laws coming into our nation. I'm talking about 650,000 criminals who were arrested for other crimes in their countries. They now are guaranteeing they have been caught and then released into ours. Of the 650,000, Greg, the numbers break down. 13,000 murderers, 15,000 rapists and molesters. So when President Donald Trump said they're emptying their jails and their mental institutions and they're sending murderers and rapists here, who was right once again?
Yeah, he's been talking, President Trump's been talking about this for years, how Venezuela has emptied all of their prisons and all their psych wards and all their mental institutions and sent all of those people to the southern border. Crime's down in some of these South American countries because they've shipped all their criminals and all their rapists and all their murderers to the southern border, and they just come right in because Kamala and Joe Biden have an open border policy. And so now all across our country, you are affecting what is a border state. In my district, we had an individual who was raped by an illegal immigrant in Southwest Florida. Every district in the country is a border district now because of the policies of this administration.
Well, we know why they shipped them all in, okay? It's so when they do the census in 2030, they can get more House seats. And right now, we've already heard reports that illegals have filled out ballots in multiple states. They're trying to rig every election from here to kingdom come. One more before we get to the storm coverage, and that is the inherent contempt of good old Secretary Antony Blinken. Is anything going to happen? I mean, Peter Navarro had to do 4 months. My friend Steve Bannon's still behind bars for another month. And you got these clowns left and right, from Merrick Garland to now Blinken, just disregarding you Republicans' contempt charges. Are we going to throw their asses in jail like they did to conservatives?
Well, we should, and we should have issued that subpoena a long time ago when Blinken was, long roading the Afghanistan debacle because he didn't want to give Republicans answers to all the questions that we've had. They absolutely should. But do you think that the weaponized, corrupt Biden DOJ is going to do anything against Antony Blinken ignoring Congress? Of course not. They're not going to. Now, if it was the opposite, if it was a Republican that was doing this with a Democratic administration, of course they would be doing that. We have a completely corrupt and weaponized DOJ. They're not going to hold their own people accountable.
All right, let's switch now to probably the biggest story in the U.S. today. Everybody is watching Hurricane Helene, I believe it's called, right? Helene. Four different states have death tolls totaling over 34 so far. I think a lot of people thought when they heard a Category 3 it wouldn't be that big, but then it built up to a 4 before it hit Florida. You guys have major flooding down there and multiple deaths in your state. A warning for folks. How can we help as well? Give us what's going on the ground there, Greg, with this storm.
So in my district, the coastal communities have all been flooded because of the storm surge. And the challenge is when these alerts go out and people see the cone. So you see that the cone's going up into the Big Bend area. People think, oh, I don't have to worry about it. It's not going to be a big deal. But then you don't see the 5 to 7 feet storm surge that you're going to see in Southwest Florida. So these people that stayed in the coastal communities, their houses flooded, their businesses flooded. All of St. Armand Circle right now in my district is underwater. Lido Key, Siesta Key, you can't even get onto my barrier islands in my district because law enforcement has it cut down because it's still flooded. The waters haven't receded. If people decided not to leave, which they shouldn't because there was orders of evacuation, but just like you said, people don't always pay attention to these evacuation orders and they stay in place and then they get stuck there and then law enforcement has to go in and save them. It's a challenging environment all the way up the west coast of Florida right now. All of our coastal community and barrier islands all the way up the west coast of Florida are not going to look the same for quite a while.
Oh, no. That's so tragic to hear. All right. Greg, best to you, the folks in your district, and everyone affected by this storm. Again, right now, folks, the death toll at 34 expected to rise in 4 states, and at least 6 or 7 states have been greatly affected by these storms, washed out roadways, flooded out bridges and whatnot. It's horrible. You have to heed the warnings, people. Greg, as always, thank you, brother. You take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anytime.